So I just always like a baseline definition, if I can ask each of our esteemed panelists, and you, Luca, of course, as well. But Ramesh, if you want to start, how would you define, in so many words, platform engineering? And perhaps Luca and Asaf maybe don't listen in because you may have very different answers.
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much, Jennifer and Luca, for inviting me to this amazing community. Luca started like a year ago or a year and a half ago, this platform engineering Slack channel, right? And it really mind-boggling looking at the number of people sharing their ideas and stuff. Okay, so to answer your question, what does it mean by platform engineering from my own? As most of the people saying, platform engineering is not something new, right? It's been there for some time, right? So what is a platform? If you really step back and look at a platform, is nothing but a system that helps others, right? So you might have seen even railway platform or even the airport terminal platforms and all that. But what is it used for? It helps others to kind of easily, commute and help others. And in the same way, from a cloud side, we have cloud platforms, right? You have a GCP, AWS, Azure, and stuff. The similar concept, if you take the helping others as the fundamental goal into the engineering side, right? So we have software developers, SREs, DevOps engineers, and QA engineers, and then build a product that acts as a platform for all these engineers is nothing but a platform engineering.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
Our other esteemed colleague, Asaf, how would you build on that? What would you contend that?
Yeah, I agree. First of all, thank you so much, Luca and Jennifer, for having me. This community has been really great to be a part of. Yeah, platform engineering is basically the next evolutionary step, I think, in the operations, then DevOps flow, or it also could be considered a rebranding, like Ramesh said, something that has been there for a long time before. Basically, there's now a lot of building blocks that used to not be there. We, on one hand, like Ramesh said, big cloud vendors with infrastructure as a service concepts that we can use, so we don't have to run our own of some of these components. And then on the other hand, there's big open source communities around Kubernetes and Argo CD and Backstage and big communities that converge on these solutions. And that way we can kind of build on the shoulders of giants before us and build, like Ramesh said, a platform that's kind of us building internally. Each business wants their own platform, their own needs that they want to tailor for their products. And we as platform engineers are trying to think of our engineers as our customers, and we're building a platform for them.
So why do you think it's becoming something new now? Why do you think 10,000 people have decided to join a Slack community in the last year dedicated to this specific topic, when there aren't necessarily Phoenix Project level books out there about it, maybe team topologies, but what do you think triggered this demand in platform engineering right now, or this appetite?
I think that we as an industry are evolving. I feel a little bit like when I joined, there were more silos, more big companies that were only talking to themselves. And over time, the world has become more global. And we as an industry have sort of started to become more mature and saying, hey, we can talk to each other. We can share our stories. We can share our successes and our failures and learn from each other and continue to kind of like popularize certain solutions so that when we contribute to those, we all kind of lift ourselves and get better kind of as a community. And I think that's the trend that I've been seeing, and why communities like Platform Engineering Slack and other ones are becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah, just to add to what Asaf said, right? So I think last decade or two or into the cloud infrastructure and different cloud providers, now every company, as Asaf said, evolved to a stage where people using all these cloud services, multi-cloud services and all that, and then started looking at how do you really optimize the internal processes, engineering processes, right? Like when you have 100 people, it's okay. But when you have like thousands of engineers, right, and that's where engineering productivity and engineering efficiency becomes very, very important. I think, in my opinion, every company that I worked, and also what I'm seeing in platform engineering, Slack channel and community, and the engineering experience and productivity has become #1 priority of late. And everybody started looking at, instead of looking at all these DevOps, SRE solutions as isolated or siloed solutions, how do you bring all those capabilities as a product, right, as a cohesive product, and offer your customers, as Asaf said, customers are engineers here, offer in a very seamless manner to the engineers so that they really love to come to work and contribute more than what they were doing in the past. So that's what has triggered the spike and thinking about the platform engineering.
Do you think it's, and neither of you, I think, mentioned internal engineers. So are you looking at who is the target audience of platform engineering?
When Asaf said and when I said, the engineers are my internal engineers, they are my customers.
Or engineers. Okay.
Exactly. So I'm working for Palo Alto Networks. All Palo Alto Networks engineers are my customers, right?
Okay.
So even if you look at some of the blogs that I wrote, the platform engineering as a notion should think as a startup, right? How do you do the startup outside is you work with your design partners, the initial like-minded people, and start building these building blocks that are already available instead of reinventing the wheel. Look at the open source community, look at other cloud providers, and work with these design partners to kind of bring your customers along with you and increase the adoption, and in turn that will have a very long-lasting impact on the company top line as well as the bottom line.
Adding to that just a tiny bit, the difference between the internal engineers and the ones everywhere in the world are kind of like blurring those lines. There are talks that I've seen internally where, hey, we used to build this internal proprietary stack, this platform that had all these abstractions, and people needed a few weeks of training to get this from the day they start to actually learn how to use. And now the shift is going the other direction, where they're saying, hey, let's not build something custom that people have to relearn every new company they join. We want an engineer to join and to be productive on day one. We want to use the technology that they're used to, that they've heard about, that they've talked about on communities like platform engineering, so that when they join us, they can just build, and love what they build.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like one of the key questions that a lot of people ask when they first hear platform engineering is like, how is this different? Like, how is this different from everything else that I already know? How is this just another buzzword that, is a shell for the same thing that gets repurposed over and over again, every 5 or so years? Or is this actually something different from, or as you said, like an evolution of what comes before? Like, could you maybe expand a little bit on that? I don't know, maybe Hugo, if you want to jump in on there.
First, thank you for having me. I agree with Asaf and Ramesh. I think with the adoption of DevOps culture, it has helped operations have a seat at the business table as well. So I think that's why we're seeing kind of this hunger to kind of get together and discuss this. And I think as companies are evolving, we're not treating it as the secret sauce anymore. Because honestly, it's not really secret. We're not giving code away or anything like that. We're kind of just sharing best practices with each other, that kind of thing.
Do you think part of it is the result of open source? Both the sharing of ideas and amplifying ideas, Spotify releasing Backstage, and also on the other side, is it part of the price to pay because open source can be so complex and you kind of need that platform or that single pane of glass to try to simplify all your systems and the cloud And both of these things take a long learning curve, and we're trying to limit the already often undersourced developers we have. Is this probably what you've all been describing, and the reflection I see of in the Slack community is an open source mindset? But is it on the opposite, kind of like Conway's Law, is it also a reflection of the complexity that we necessarily need this exchange of platform ideas and to try to fix the endemic burnout?
I think Jennifer, you put it in the right way. You're absolutely right. The starting point is the open source, the evolution of open source in the last few years, right? And there is, for everything that you do in the DevOps and SRE world, there is open source project out there, right? You will find one or like more than one open source project out there. The same open source kind of a contribution model, and how do you bring that into internal enterprise, right? So even if you start using open source, like as you rightly said, the great platform or engineering portal platform Backstage, right? You can't use it right, just right off the box, right? Right out of the box, you cannot use. You need to tweak that to your company's needs and also make it as an inner sourcing, right? It's not just the platform engineering that can solve all the platform engineering needs for a given company, and you need to embrace the internal open sourcing model and bring your like-minded customers, the internal engineers on board, so that they can also contribute back to the platform that you are building for a company, right? So the similar to open source, but you are internal to your company, and getting that contribution from multiple people towards this platform as a product notion. So that's what is really, helping us to where we are, at least in Palo Alto Networks.
Yep.
Okay.
And if I could add to that, what Ramesh said earlier about how we're trying to increase the efficiency of our engineers, the business is very interested in that. But the open source world is kind of catering to everyone in the world at the same time. And as a result, it's creating these general solutions that have lots of little options, like a Swiss Army knife, able to handle anything that you throw at it. But that complexity is too much for everyone to learn every little detail. And it's very easy for someone who's new to shoot themselves in the foot, even if they're brilliant and they've done it 100 times. So that's why they rely on platform teams to kind of choose the right default options for them, so that they can only focus on the real problem that they're solving right now, and let the platform engineer deal with the rest. Usually.
Yeah, I can give another example. Let's say, for example, in a bigger enterprise company, you have hundreds of teams, right? If one of the team already solved, some specific use case, right? But how do you really share that success story and make it generic for entire company or remaining, teams in the company, right? So that's where platform engineering becomes like a vehicle, right? Okay, hey, you are like one of the teams who solved, and how can you make it as a more generic or reusable for rest of the teams in the company, right? And that was missing in the past. Like every team is reinventing the wheel, right? Without like, it's nothing wrong, but because they don't even know that something exists or somebody has solved this given problem, right? So now platform engineering, or this internal developer platform, is bringing all those things onto the face of engineers, so they can go and easily search, they can go and easily kind of get started, scaffold, or whatever you call, right? And improve your day-to-day efficiency.
I love that. Jennifer, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're kind of skirting around one of the ideas, especially with open source. One of the statistics that came out of the inaugural Cloud Native Security Con was that 87% of container images in productions have critical or high severity vulnerabilities. I've also heard numbers that it takes more than a year for most patches to go through on open source. And what we're talking about are horizontal problems that go across the entire organization. Everyone should be worried about security. Only 3% of developers want to be responsible for security. How do we reconcile that? And that is taking that pendulum back from that autonomous developer culture of independent, etc. And if developers don't want to have to worry, if only 3% of developers want to have to worry about security, don't have them worry about security. Either have them run the tests to be able to release it, or run the tests automatically for them. So there's a lot of things that Abby Bangser from Syntasso said. There's a lot of work that is non-differential, but not unimportant. Whether it's compliance, it's security. There's a lot of things that are very important, but are not why a developer comes to work every day, and not where they are bringing their best self. It's about going from code monkey to creative worker and enjoying their
Yeah,
jobs.
I absolutely agree with you, Jan, there. And I think the key element there is what both Asaf and Ramesh touch on, which is building that feedback loop, right, between the platform engineering team and the rest of the engineering organizations, which is their internal customers, right? And really when that feedback loop is tight is when you can figure out what are the right golden paths, right? Like one of the ways we define an internal developer platform is really as a superset of the different golden paths that abstract away all the underlying infrastructure and configuration complexity away from developers. Now, the key question, though, and something that I think comes up a lot in the community as well, is how do you find the right abstraction level? Because it might be that different types of teams and different types of users have different preferences when it comes to, what is this golden path, how they like to interact, what is the best interface with the underlying, delivery setup. So what do you guys, what have you guys learned in terms of best practices of how to communicate with the rest of the engineering org, and figure out those different golden paths? Maybe Hugo, you can get us started, and then we can go around the horn.
So for example, for us, even though we technically don't have a platform engineering team, we started with one of our teams and basically kind of collaborated with them in creating like a golden path for them. Basically, they were our test team. They gave us feedback and we reiterated on it. And basically, we're using them as evangelists for the rest of our organization. And that's how we kind of started on that path.
I have a follow-up question for Hugo. How do you know that that team knows what all the other teams want to build into their platform?
So the way we did it is we basically created the initial golden path, provided to that initial team. They provided to us feedback. And what we tell our other teams is, you're free to use this. It's fully supported by us, but if you move from this golden path, then you're on your own, just because we're a small organization. So
How did you choose that one team to be the guinea pig of the golden pathway?
So we're currently migrating to Kubernetes. They just happened to be the first team working on microservices. So that's how it was decided.
That's usually what we see, though, that it tends to be platform teams pick the kind of like the more advanced dev teams within the org. Maybe they are more familiar with cloud native technologies, or not too scared of handling Terraform modules or Helm charts, and then can sort of figure out what's that minimum common denominator, that foundational baseline of low abstraction, and then progressively go to higher abstraction levels as you move to other teams. Ramesh, have you seen the same at Palo Alto?
Absolutely. I think I add to Hugo as well. We worked with a couple of teams, not one team, right? When we actually started the platform engineering notion, and got the requirements exactly where their pain points are, and started building the building blocks. As you rightly said, the common denominator, working with these two teams, what is the base abstraction that you can have and templatize it? And after that, when we're reaching out to more people, as you rightly said, Luca, every team has a different needs and they want a different level of abstraction. So the way how we built is the initial abstraction that we provide, the base abstraction, we try to make it as, base as possible and provide them as a base templates or base golden path, whatever you call, for everybody in the company. And then we implemented a multi-tenancy concept on top of Backstage, where each team would get these base templates for free, and they can actually go and build taking the base template and whatever the abstraction they wanted on top of it. It is only specific to that given team. So if an engineer joining from a given team, because he belongs to some LDAP or AD group, he would see the global and as well as his team specific abstractions and golden paths. So that's how we are going after solving this problem.
And how do you accomplish that with like API first architecture? So how do they actually access it in a different way, the platform?
It's the same, how you really build a object-oriented programming concept, right? Like, you have to have that base, and then you should be able to extend your interface. As you rightly said, that API, actually, in my opinion, entire platform engineering, or when you're treating platform as a product, you should treat your product as the API that you are actually giving to your customers. That means your internal customers. And you should have a way to easily extend it. So that's where the true product design come into play. And that is where the legacy DevOps and SRE tooling and platform engineering, gets differentiated. Otherwise, again, you're doing the same, legacy model of, building a script or building a tool rather than a product, right?
I think that's a super important point. And actually, maybe building on top of that, we have one of the first questions from the YouTube. From where should people begin if they want to become a platform engineer? What have you guys seen are the sort of like key skill sets that mark a successful platform engineer? Asaf?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Basically, I think you start by taking a look around and taking stock of what are the important problems that you think your team should own. You declare what it is you do own and what it is you don't. You start supporting those things, and you start writing goals against them. It can be quarterly, it can be yearly, and then you start sticking to them. And the benefit there is that you can tell people, this is what I'm working on. This is the data that I'm using to prove that this is the most important thing for the company. And once you start succeeding at your goals, people trust you to commit to the next ones. That also allows you to say no to certain other tasks that are coming your way, and to segment part of your team only for on-call or something in order to make sure that you can accomplish your goals while still once in a while needing to do firefighting if you need to. This allows you to basically evolve, like Ramesh said, into more of a product focused role where you're building a product for the rest of the company, and you're iterating on that product from an initial start person and building out an API or contract that you have with the rest of the company. It can start with like golden paths that can evolve into like an internal developer portal or more. And this evolution is something I've seen kind of a few times at a few places. And I think it's the healthy way for infrastructure platform teams to shift from just a firefighting team to one that is actually owning their destiny or their journey for their company.
Going from platform engineering to platform enablement.
Yes.
Which definitely comes down to self-service as well. So there are ticks that, just like any open source product worth its salt, any inner source product as well, you need to make sure you have documentation, you have examples, you have even probably more detailed documentation that goes through the reasoning behind decision making, why you did that technical decision, what happens if you don't follow that pathway, the risks of going off the golden path, things like that, that even API architects are always complaining, like consumer developers are always complaining there's not enough documentation. Well, it's even more essential and probably harder to automate internally.
Yes, I agree. It's definitely from quarterly surveys that we do. It's like a problem that comes up again and again. Discoverability and documentation and making that like front and center for people. The data proves it, and it's why it's one of the most important things. It's actually one of the reasons I really like platform engineering, because I think the internal developers are pushing this on you, are demanding of you to make this better, to make the documentation better, and to think of the whole product just like an external facing one that people need to use and understand, and they're kind of closer to you, so you can be honest and open about what you're building and iterate on the documentation more quickly because your users are a little bit closer to you.
And I'm curious, have you actually seen multiple, maybe Ramesh also at Palo Alto Networks, since you guys are a larger company, have you seen multiple, I mean, Twilio is pretty big as well. Have you seen multiple platform engineering initiatives sort of like competing at the same time? Because that's one thing that I've seen at larger companies that I thought was really interesting and really creating that dynamic of a real market, right? Where you really almost need to build a go-to-market around your product.
Yeah, I wouldn't say multiple teams building multiple products. We are collaborating. I think the like-minded teams across the company coming together. We do have internal forum, right, where we every month come together and talk about the different initiatives and how we can leverage each other's ideas. Yes, you can't really avoid completely, reusing the stuff that, built by some other platform team or platform engineering team in a bigger company. But, our goal is to how do you really bring those efforts together and, amplify the impact of the platform across the company, right? Sometimes just like how we hear the different feedback from open source community, the similar kind of ideas and similar kind of implementations we are hearing within Palo Alto Networks, and we're trying to kind of work together. Hey, you've done some good capability there. How can we build us into what we are doing, and whatever we built, how you can leverage, right? One example, classic example I can give you is the cost optimization. The cloud cost optimization has become like a important aspect of everybody these days. So one of the teams within Palo Alto already built the complete, deep insights into, cost across the multi-cloud, and then into the developer portal that my team is building. Okay, hey, why do you want to build it again from the scratch? So how can we integrate? Because that's again same API as Jennifer said. Like we just integrate and pull that as a plugin onto the Backstage-based developer platform that we built.
Ramesh, at Palo Alto, how big is your platform engineering teams? And how many people? And then how many people are they serving in the engineering overall?
Yeah, sure. The total team, like, if you look at my background, that's my team's name, Cloud Infrastructure and Platform Engineering. And you can see all the capabilities that engineering platform or developer platform offers with the different names out there. Right. So the team is around 30 plus people, right? And, the team also owns the entire cloud infrastructure, frameworks and tooling. For the data center, we do have some data center presence where we help our engineers, just like a cloud kind of experience, to deal with the data center as well through the same, developer platform that we built, right? And this team is currently serving almost like the total engineering is like 1,500 plus engineers, right?
Wow.
And yeah, we do have, other pockets of platform teams, but as I don't really, prefer that, okay, this team to be centralized under one leader or anything like that, as long as teams can come together as a virtual force to build the platform. that should be fine, right? So that's what I meant by inner sourcing. And that's the model that we are using, even though we have another 1,000-member team in other teams, 1,000 engineering member team, and they are working on the similar initiatives, and we are trying to unify these efforts, to help our engineers in Palo Alto.
How's the backlog of the platform team? Because that's a lot of that ratio is hard.
Yeah, so though we have like a 1,500 plus engineers, and I wouldn't say that, okay, all 1,500 engineers are already onboarded and using the platform. As I said, we started with the 2 teams initially, and now we have almost like a 15 plus teams that are actively using. And the plan is to kind of not just announcing the platform capability, but also onboard the teams over to the platform. And as you rightly put in, you need to have the easy onboarding. Otherwise, developers and engineers will think, okay, I can build it myself. Why do I need to use your platform? Going through like a 20-page, 100-page documentation, and it's a new learning for me, right? As an engineer. So that's where we are putting a lot of effort and building this as a true product, right? And understanding each persona. And when I say the persona might come from a typical engineer versus a QA engineer versus a SRE or DevOps, or even persona changes from team to team, as you rightly put in. And that's where our priority come into play. So you want to solve a problem that you are hearing from multiple teams, or you want to solve a problem you're hearing from your initial customers, right? So which one is your priority and stuff? And we trying our best to kind of pacify and satisfy the needs from the various teams.
That's very difficult. Just anyone else, how are you marketing your platform internally? Do you have a developer advocate or someone that naturally could be one internally? Or how do you amplify case studies, success stories, best practices?
Yeah, I wish we had a developer advocate. We try to have a pattern where we announce releases every time we have any user-facing changes. There's certain Slack channels that we always post on when that happens, and certain emails that we send out. We try to kind of use semantic versioning, even for like websites or our developer portal, which we build on Backstage, and we share what we built. And we also have demos once a month that we share. And we have like a newsletter once a month, which usually just refers to the demo, but also iterates, kind of expands on what is the new things that are being built.
To expand on that, obviously we're not as big, but one of the things that's been really useful for us is office hours as well. It's been really helpful to have, anybody that needs help or wants to learn more, come in and ask us questions. Obviously, that might be a little bit harder to do if you have like a lot of teams, but we found that it's been pretty helpful.
Yep. To add to that, even at Palo Alto, we don't have any developers advocate, or actually, I've been trying to get a product manager to kind of even get these requirements consolidate. And currently, as the leadership, me and my direct staff is playing all these hats, right? As I said, platform engineering, if you really want to change this whole notion of the legacy DevOps, SRE use cases to a platform engineering, the team has to really act or work like a startup, right? Where you don't have resources for your product manager or a program manager or developers advocate. You won't get it initially, but once you start seeing the success, yes, definitely the leadership and company would, definitely try to invest, right? Yeah, exactly. So as of today, that's like the leadership, the platform engineering team leadership is playing technical marketing role, product management role, program management role, right? And developers advocate role. All these are, led by the same team. And, add to what Asaf said, we have a quarterly newsletter, which actually calls out every area, what we have done from last quarter to this quarter. And then we have this 5 minutes to 7 minutes, videos on the new capability, right? So, because if your video is like beyond 10, 15 minutes, people don't even show interest to look at it. So we wanted to kind of have a smaller, demos and smaller use case description, how it is really helping. And we put them on the same portal so that they can go and click on it and understand the use case that what is being built, so that they can start, experimenting and testing it in their QA and staging before start using it for production use cases.
I guess
I
the
love
fear
that.
now is the team created to reduce developer burnout in the company is now at high risk for burnout.
Usually is the case when you're busy. But I love that, Ramesh and everybody. I think, really build on top of what we really advocate for in the community, and to kind of close the loop on the question from the YouTube stream. It's really about, having this product mindset, right, on the one hand, and then really this communication skill set on the other. I think, if you were to plot, right, on a sort of like x-axis time and y-axis communication skill, you would have kind of like an app into the right from the sysadmin to your infrastructure, SRE, and then platform engineer. Because when you're doing platform engineering, it's so key that you really get to communicate to all the different stakeholders, right? And it's about figuring out the right level of abstraction and the right type of experience for developers, but also, be able to communicate the ROI of a platform to executives, stakeholders. So it's quite a complex dance
Exactly.
that you kind of need to do.
Yep. And you definitely need to have that QA staging prod kind of concept for your internal product or platform engineering services as well. And that's what we started adopting since day one, because you cannot simply break and say that, oh, I made some change and that broke your production pipeline or something like that, right? So you have to treat it as a true customer facing, not internal customer, true outward customer facing production service, and implement all those best practices that what you see in the industry for your internal products or internal platforms as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's like one of the advantages really. You then, once you understand, once you have this mindset shift towards, hey, we're building and shipping a product here, then you can just build upon decades of product management best practices, right? It's literally just the same stuff. All right, cool. So I want to be mindful of time, and we have about a few minutes left. Maybe we'll run over just like 5 minutes. I just want to take a minute to kind of celebrate this milestone. Let me just quickly share here. This is a brief history of the platform engineering community as it stands today. We have started 2 years ago, really with a couple of small meetup groups in Europe that quickly grew to now 28 groups all over the world, really. Over 10,000 members. Over 10,000 members in the Slack as well. This is outdated. We just crossed it today. And obviously this platformengine.org, that's really the home of the community, is where you can see the upcoming events. There's a job board, there's a store with some fun merch. And then PlatformCon, I think, was really the one of the highlights community-wise of last year. It's something I'm personally really looking forward to for this year as well. We're actually expecting almost a 3x, so about 15,000 attendees for this year. And then obviously there's a YouTube channel. There is Platform Week. There's a newsletter. There's also House of Cube, which is an in-person event that we're hosting following kind of the Cloud Native community where it gathers, i.e. KubeCon is going to be the next step here. We've posted some of the links here in the chat for everybody to take a look at. And so before we wrap up, maybe just a quick kind of spitfire going around the horn. What have you guys found that it was? What do you love most in the community? What do you find the most benefit? And what would you like to see more of? And let's keep it quick, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of call to actions.
Yep, I can go first. Absolutely. So I think a lot of ideas, some of things that as a leader I implemented at Palo Alto. came from this community, right? So not like, idea, but the problem, what others are running into, right? So whenever, people introduce, I'm actually, every weekend I spent few hours going through the platform engineering, Slack channel just to see what people are actually saying and what questions people are asking, what problems they are running into, right? And use that as the, input to my strategy and vision roadmap at what I am doing, right? So that's number one, like, that idea sharing and problem statements, and also some innovative ways of solving the problems, right? So a lot of startups that I came to know after I joined platform engineering, to be honest, right? Like, we were trying to do, I can give you a simple example. We are trying to think about how do we build this ephemeral environment, use case in the internal developer platform. But I found like tens of companies in platform engineering who are doing a similar thing, and looked at each of those startups, how they are doing, what they are doing, or are the open source, projects that are out there, right? And also getting the feedback on some of those open source software that people are using, whether, is it actively being maintained or just like, lying in there and all that. So all that feedback could able to, grab from platform engineering Slack channel, as well as the platform engineering org. There are some nice blogs, and as well as the newsletter, Luca, as you rightly said, also helping to feed in that knowledge. I think it's a great job so far. And even in whatever the way I can contribute or my team can contribute, we have been actually also thinking to contribute back to the community in coming days.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Ramesh said. What I enjoy a lot see in platform community is basically learning what are the problems that other people are doing, and what are the solutions that they're considering, and the trade-offs that they have in between. I love talking to people about those kind of things, those small problems and big problems they're dealing with. It's also validating to me, because then when I learn that my team is focusing on this problem or has this on their roadmap, that's not a unique situation, that actually this is a hard problem, lots of people are dealing with it, and here are a few options they've had before, and here are some reasons why this is good. And it's always a trade-off. It's never 100% silver bullet. And I love learning and researching and hearing what others say like that. And I want to see more of that, more tiny little problems and stories that we can chat and work through together.
Hugo?
I agree as well. It helps share the knowledge and best practices, and it elevates all our craft. And of course, helping teams and others who are just starting this journey as well to have an easy way to access information. There's a lot of information out there, but it's all over the place in blogs and YouTube videos. And it's nice to have a central place that you can come to and start from.
Totally. And I actually think you touched on something really important there as well, which is I feel like the community has gone through a big kind of push in the last year and a half around, hey, listen to us. If you want true kind of, you build it, you run a true DevOps at an enterprise scale, you need to build an internal developer platform. You need platform as a product, and everything that we discussed today. And now it feels like there are a lot of people writing about it. There are a lot of people listening. And so the next natural question is, okay, great. I'm bought in. This is hot, it's trendy, it's cool. Where do I go next? Right. And then there's really not a lot of good starting places, a lot of reference architectures, and a lot of clear paths and design principles for how to get started building your platform. And I think that's really something that as a community we should focus on this year. And it's going to be one of the key themes at PlatformCon 23 as well. We're going to have a dedicated track, which is blueprints, and it's really going to be pushing this concept. So maybe to wrap up, thank you everybody for being a part of this community. Thank you, Jennifer, as well, and thank you for helping me moderate this. We are wrapping up the CFP today at PlatformCon. great timing. We hit 10K literally today, a couple of hours ago. So the timing all worked out. But yeah, so if anybody wants to speak more about these topics, has blueprints, has architectures that you guys want to share with the community, I think PlatformCon is a great place to do that. So go submit that talk. And we'll see you around in the Slack or at PlatformCon. Thank you guys for being a part of this.
Absolutely.